Get zip functionality for free. Looking for a way to integrate zip and unzip functionality into your application on the cheap? Here's the plan, and Fernando Vicaria has even wrapped it all up into a neat little component for you. This article originally appeared in Delphi Developer, copyright Pinnacle Publishing Incorporated. All rights reserved. You need a chunk of functionality. Do you buy a component or roll up your sleeves and start in on the design yourself? Very often you can find a freeware component that does the job. Unfortunately, it's also common that those components don't come with source or are less than perfect. And if you're like me, you hate to add anything to your application that doesn't come with source code or hasn't been fully tested. If one extra feature you need is the capability to compress or decompress files using the industry standard zip format, then you're in luck. Winzip 7.0, and later versions, now has its own command line support. This incredibly useful add-on is available for download from Nico Mac Computing Incorporated at its website, http://www.winzip.com. What's so great about a command line? Think about it. Now you can build a component to call the command line program, and all your problems will be solved. Here's one way to do just that. Getting Winzip. First of all, you need to install Winzip 7.0. If you already have any other version of Winzip, upgrades can be downloaded for free from the URL I just mentioned. Once you have the latest version, the next step is to download and install the command line add-on. Once you have them both installed, make sure they've been added to your path. Now if you could build a component to call the command line program and pass the right instructions to execute Winzip, that would make compressing and decompressing files in your application simple. An enumerated type and the declaration. This is a typical example of what OOP, and, more specifically, Delphi, is all about. The first thing you should do is create an enumerated type where you can specify which direction you want to go, compress or decompress. Tzip state equals zs compress, zs decompress. This type will let you switch between the two possible actions of the component. Listing 1 shows the component declaration. Listing 1. The compression/decompression component declaration. TFV Winzip equals class, T component, private declarations F file name, string, F use file list, boolean, F file list, T string list, F zip file name, string, F zip state, tzip state, f on execute, t notify event, function get file list, t string list, procedure set file list, value, t string list, procedure create compress bat, published declarations property file name, string read f file name write f file name, property use file list, boolean read f use file list write f use file list default false, property file list, t string list read get file list write set file list, property zip state, t zip state read f zip state write f zip state, property zip file name, string read f zip file name write f zip file name, property on execute, t notify event read f on execute write f on execute, public declarations constructor create, a owner, t component, override, destructor destroy, override, procedure execute, and most of its properties and methods should be self-explanatory. You can find the full implementation in the file fvwinzip.pa. Implementation declarations. If you look at the beginning of the implementation section of the code, you'll see the following code: $rfvwinzip.resconst batch file equals tvzip.bat, zip equals unzip, unzip equals unzip, list name equals zipit.lst. The first line should be very familiar for those used to creating their own components. It specifies the resource file that contains the icon for our component. You can create and design your own icons using any resource editor. In Delphi, the default is imagedit.exe, which can be found in the bin directory. The constants declared here will help you deal with the various files used in the process of creating or extracting our zip files. Batch file is the name of the batch file that will be created by our component. This file has the responsibility of calling one of the zip files, zip for compress or unzip for decompressing. The last one is list name, which is the name of a text file that contains a list of the files to be added to the zip file as well as commands for the command line program, much like you'd do in a batch file and DOS. List name is only used when the property use file list of our zip component is set to true and a valid list of files is entered in the file list property. As I mentioned earlier, this is only one of the possible implementations for this component. There's definitely room for improvement. Have a look at the online help file that comes with the Winzip command line support add-on for more information. The implementation code. There are two important methods in the implementation section I'd like to describe for you. The first one is the procedure create compress bat. See listing 2. In this procedure, You create a batch file based on the user's requirements. It specifies the action to take, compress/decompress, the name of the file to compress, the name of the zip file, and whether you're using a list file or not. Listing 2. The create compress bat routine. Procedure tfv winzip.create compress bat, var f, text file, command, string, begin try if zip state equals zs compress then command equals zip else command equals unzip, create compress batch file assign file, f, batch file, rewrite, f, writeln, f, at echo off, writeln, f, ram tfv winzip by f Vicaria, if use file list then writeln, f, command ++ zip file name ++ at zipit.lst else writeln, f, command ++ zip file name ++ file name writeln, f, cd \, writeln, f, cls. Finally close file, f, and, the second one is the heart of our component. The execute method, see listing 3, will initiate a separate process that will run the batch file, which will, in turn, call Winzip's command line. This will avoid any sort of dependency on the speed of the machine running the program. To do this, I use two API functions: create a process and wait for single object. Check the Windows API help file for more details on how to use these functions. Listing 3. The execute routine. Procedure tfv winzip.execute, var process info, t process information, startup info, t startup info, closed, boolean, old time, t date time, begin if assigned, f on execute, then f on execute, self, try check use file list is set or if file name or is a valid file if use file list then begin if file list dot count equals 0 then begin message dlg, no file to compress, empty error, book, 0, exit, and else file list dot save to file, list name, and else begin if not file exists, file name, then begin message dlg. Program could not find file to compress, empty error, book, 0, exit, and if zip file name is blank use file name as the default name if zip file name equals then begin if file name then zip file name equals change file ext, file name, dot zip, else zip file name equals untitled dot zip, and create batch file create compress bat, Prepare Windows settings for the process field char. Startup info, size of, T startup info, 0, with startup info do begin CB equals size of, T startup info, DW flags equals. Start _used show window, W show window equals SW _ minimize, and execute batch file as separated process create process, pchar, batch file, nil, false, normal _priority _class, nil, startup info, process info, wait for that process to finish or cancel it after 10 seconds closed equals false, old time equals now, repeat case wait for single object, process info.h process, 100, of wait _object _0, closed equals true, wait _failed, raise last win32 error, and application.process messages, until closed, or, now old time plus 10,000, delete batch file delete file, batch file, if use file list then delete file, list name, except message DLG, program could not compress file, MT error, mbook 0, and, after executing the batch file and, consequently, Winzip, the execute method will get rid of all of the internally created files for you. Once the method returns, all you're left with is the zip file you created or the files you extracted. Finally, using your object couldn't be easier. Just call the execute method after creating the object and set some of its properties with the appropriate values. See the example application included. To run this component, just call the execute method after having filled the component's properties with the appropriate values. The simplest option is to supply the name of the file you wish to compress, file name, and the name of the zip file to create, zip file name. Note: if you want to compress more than one file in the same zip file, use the file list string list. The help file that comes with the command line add-on for Winzip will give you more ideas on how to improve this component and how to take full advantage of Winzip in your applications. A couple of warnings. You'll need to make sure that the two files that come with the Winzip command line add-on, unzip.exe and unzip.exe, are in your path. If they aren't, you'll need to move them to your system directory. Another thing to remember is that these files are free only for those who have bought Winzip and upgraded to version 7 or later. In my opinion, this can barely be considered a drawback nowadays. Winzip has become the industry standard archive utility for the Windows environment, and it's very difficult to find anyone who doesn't use it. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to me at fvicaria@vanoN.com. Files associated with this article: Vicaria.zip.